All right. So there's certain like think of them as like the the promoter for the underground boxing groups. Okay, so those are called fight clubs. Those are an S&M. Those are like a rapist S&M. And so those people, they do hypnotism. They're also the ones that do that stuff to those little kids. Okay, so essentially, here's where basically they're known as in ways they have an extensive secret code. I tell you, I've researched for years on figuring out this type of stuff. The Dropkick Murphys. And so essentially they're a millennial group and that they'll be South Park S&M themed. So a lot of times these S&Ms will like watch a TV show and that theirs will be South Park. So let's see. So the fake Irish mob of German and reject spooch Tea Party Ron Paul Revolution kind of people and skinny D&D nerds. Okay, so they basically like to do kind of the Fight Club movie also. It'll involve people that are graffiti artists and homeless sometimes. It deals with that. They end up being people that like end up being drug dealers and they just kind of live homeless a little bit, and then there's a place usually for them to sleep at, and then they usually rack up a bunch of cash while homeless, kind of selling drugs and doing prostitution. The potential for tattoos will be something that's a rose, okay? And so essentially some of their main people will be fat and they'll have like what the Irish people's cap or the English kind of cap, basically like the Dropkick Murphys kind of. They'll be Germans or like random genetic people. They won't be a part of the Irish mob. They'll be attempting to pass themselves off in that way. Essentially, they'll be doing KKK story booze. Okay, so what that is that essentially in the Nazi S&M, if they start doing church, then the Klan allows them to drink Jack Daniel booze, basically. Basically. And so there'll be the fake feminists that like to out feminists, but they'll be raging misogynists at them about it. There'll be the little girls, satanic sex slavers. Uh, they'll essentially they'll each have a band or something that defines them, and then it'll be something that revolves around an obscure musical instrument. That's just another, this is data. This would be an example of data that I know, kind of what they build their stuff around. In that, essentially, a lot of times they like to do music videos in kinkster ways. And that essentially, once I figure out a certain term or association, a lot of times once I lock on to like, okay, that's what drop foot is. It's like a secret codes that they use. So this would be an example of where I finally, just today, I finally figured out what one of their weird secret codes are. Okay, so now I'm compiling data. Essentially, I know that they use a music video. So once I figure out their cipher key, then I know how to build data from their cipher key. Okay? So essentially, the visual imagery in the rose tattoo video, that also feeds into some of my preliminary data about them. So essentially, there's imageries of skull and bones. Okay, so what that means, that's like skull and bones, the candle ritual and the slice ritual, which is like a ritual that I have on scars on my body from. That is what skull and bones means. Okay, see this scar on my chest right here. It looks like a skull, kind of, and then there's like a little line here, and that's called a bone. And so what that indicates is that they're a true satanic group that does authentic Satanism. Okay, that's basically. Essentially, let's see, what else? They'll be doing audio recognition training stuff. It means that they'll be doing sound associations at people. They'll be passing themselves off as Tea Party, CIA groups or something like that. All those people that do audio recognition. See, when they get caught accessing somebody's speakers and putting little low volume sounds and movement sounds and shit, that is where they always say that they're in some secret agency and shit. Okay, it's pretty fucking typical nowadays. It's like their go-to explanation. So essentially then they'll be doing probably porn church, more than likely. That's my guess, because essentially to be able to drink booze, to misdirect the reality of how they're pedophiles, they're actually not allowed to drink booze, but if they do church, then in the white supremacy system, they're allowed to drink alcohol or brown booze, basically. So there's also references to essentially tattoos on the inner arm. Okay, what that means, that's law. Basically, law or medicine. It could be either one. It could be both. I just put that down because that's where I know that they're involved with that stuff. That makes sense too, because they're in Mormon Twilight with the cops and the Mormons. There are also references to essentially being psychos and being, knives, that's what it was, knives here in the video represents potentials for them being the one that like actually stabs the little infant child at this ritual or this one. And so then a lot of that stuff leads into one of the things that I know about some of their references in the Boston reference. That is a church, that's a reference. The church that they'll be doing will be Boston Church of Christ cult in a porn church way. And that they'll be essentially what I know about those people. I have some preliminary information that leads into the video reference, the visual references in the video. So the Boston one, then that made sense. I know that those people, they do their Sunday of the week or something is Thursday. And that's a reference to. And that's a blackmail system also. And that the Boston Church of Christ cult is a blackmailing cult that attempts to pass itself off as the church I grew up in. So I'm pretty familiarized with them, and I know what the reference of Thursday is. Blackmail system, these people, they like to be the secret infiltrators to regular Republican world and also to the Democrat, more conservative Democrat world. They do the Donald Trump blackmailing of voter stuff. There'll be other groups that do too, but they'll be involved with that also. So a little bit about what those references lead into is that essentially it's the onyx ring. These references reference them, have potential references to other satanic rituals, and that when you essentially essentially, the ultimate misogynists, they delete the witch's blocks, the four corners of witchcraft, and then they do misogyny in the most satanic way, which is Islamic Satanism, and that when you fill in when you do all these rituals, then it's considered the black onyx ring, and it's a huge satanic mockery to the black rock in Mecca. Okay? And then they get a gold ring, and then it has an onyx stone in it. And so what I know about stupid cuck wizard is that I know everything about the person that when I was a kid I got the little prick on my wiener, okay, the Satan man one, and that then stupid cuck wizard would suck his onyx ring off the end of my wiener, okay, out of prairie. And I know that about them. They're extremely skilled hypnotists. They always usually have a mustache. They always attempt. They're the ones that, like, essentially as they get older, they tuck in and they won't wear a tie, and they'll have it unbuttoned, usually like a blue shirt with some gray slacks or something. And that a lot of times they'll smoke an unfiltered pyramid. A lot of times they'll smoke a Camel unfiltered, but they're not necessarily supposed to. When they do this world, they're supposed to smoke a pyramid, which has unfiltered cigarettes, and then they'll have a nondescript, regular, generic Zippo lighter. That's all part of their hypnosis encryption ideas. These are the people that do the stuff to the little children in the enchantment way. And so when they're running an S&M, they also run an S&M, but to run that sick fuck S&M, none of the bikers would ever do that, because you're the slaves. They're the slave that gang or integrated gang in the overall world or whatever. They have to run the child trafficking and just to run the S&M. And so when the S&M switches to S&M contract, that is where they run the S&M child trafficking. These groups will be running that, and that is where essentially when it's running as a militarized Nazi contract, essentially they'll be doing militant science contracts, and that'll be like guns. It now has moved into militarized cyber warfare. It'll involve bombs and hand grenades and guns and stuff like that. Let's see, what else about these dumb fucks? They'll all suffer. This one will suffer from his little problem of wanting to suck little Satan man's wiener. He'll be somewhat of the leader. The rest of his little minions, they'll all have secret, icky incest shame. And that essentially, they would have gone to the alternative. This one, essentially, this is where the second scar comes from on my eye up here. From this ritual when I was a kid, with one of these fucks at it. See, in white supremacy, if they don't go to the Klan's cross burning, which most of them probably wouldn't be allowed, the alternative to that is the sunshine. The sunshine. And a lot of times they do that at the sea, but nowadays they just kind of do all of it at once. You know? So that's essentially where they'll be involved in gun trafficking. If they're the dumber they are, see, if like this dumbass that spent on, theoretical old fucking dumbass. Theoretically, he would spend all of his intellectual time ever trying to figure out how to make a little boy be fuck switched in all these ways and little girls and shit. And that the whole idea is that that makes him somewhat useless because these type of people, they like to optimize their dumbness for satanic S&M reasons. And so with that, that has them not actually learning to be smart in any way. That kind of has them useless when they switch over to the Nazi contractor stuff. And then that is where essentially they just, since they're skilled at trafficking, they end up trafficking munitions, and they might be the ones that gather the computers and hand out computers and stuff like that. And that they'll be the ones that are gathering that type of stuff. The whole idea is that these people also they do a lot of times an integrated tech sex club. That is what I'm talking about with these, because the military guys would be like, well, why aren't these people looking like the fucking dumb couples? I thought the same thing, that is because essentially these people do Amazon Sex Tech Club, which is an integration of the Russian contract system and the Nazi contract system and the Chinese and the Islamic terror system. And so since these people do satanic Islam, that has their blackmail of this shit also being collected by Islamic terror for a balance. And then that is where there's potentials for them stockpiling cell weaponry and cell computers for a cell in Islamic terror drug. And so that is one of the main groups that I've been focusing on, because they were able to do a very highly technical trafficking methodology, right? And that type of group attempted to do the potential abduction of my child. So that is where I've been trying to isolate and figure out all data on those stupid fucks, okay? In all fucking ways. And so that's where they're also highly skilled at psychoping idiots at being secret agents or something. See, they think that their weird satanic S&M club ideas that used to be used in the 1960s and 70s during the MK Ultra kind of stuff, that stuff is so fucking outdated that that's literally what I use to pinpoint sick fucks in sleazy S&M clubs. See, the moment that sleazy S&M clubbers start using the old like MK Ultra agency ideas, that's when I know that none of them are in any secret agency, but they're highly skilled at psychoping people with that idea. And most of the time, they're the ones that do all the massive blackmailing to everybody. And so when that happens, then everybody just kind of kumbayas together and just believes and accepts it on purpose. But in the reality, somebody that's not blackmailed, that knows how to find the indicators of a stupid little pedophile. Stupid little pedophiles.